Welcome back to a brand new lecture series on the one YouTube channel with the latest and greatest of rhetoric, argumentation, public speaking. It is I, Dr. Steve Yano, welcoming you back. Welcome. Hello. Hey, what's going on? I'm a little underdressed, I think, but it's a nice October evening here in New York City, and I put my autumn background up. I really like this background. Actually, I put this background up. I'm looking at it on the other monitor. It looks pretty good. I put this background up because I was in a training, and I didn't want to put the, and I was also doing a video that wasn't really for class. I didn't want to put the St. John's background up. You know, we have the St. John's background. I might put, you know, I've been kind of bad lately. I've been making some AI images of, Mr., or should we say Coach Rick Pitino. Kind of a questionable fellow who we've hired to coach basketball. But I say questionable from the perspective of faculty. But from the perspective of administration, probably not questionable at all. Might have made a lot of sense. But I don't think that way. But maybe I'll put up a Rick Pitino image as the background next time if you guys want that. Let me know in the comments. I can always put a disturbing image up. But welcome back. This is the lecture 1 in a series of lectures. I don't know how many they're going to be about the book On Dialogue. And you know what? I don't think I have a scene with Adobe. Uh-oh. So the screen's going to go black here as we set this up. But I think, oh, look, it's me again. But I'm going to set this up really quick. But I have been grading the speeches. A lot of you have gotten your grades. A lot of you haven't gotten your grades. And a lot of you just didn't do the thing. So I'm wondering about that. Is everything okay? Make sure to do the assignments, folks. It's very important. Yeah, that part is really just for my class about the grades and the doing the assignments. Just make sure you're doing the assignments. Like, what could you possibly be doing to not hand stuff in? And if you're having trouble, you know, you can always pop on over to Discord. Where's Discord? Hello? Dizzy. Where's the Dizzy? Here it is. Let's pop over to Discord. Your class channels are down here. Close Speaking Online. We have some chats. General chat. Any class you're in, you can get help from either me or colleagues there. It can be good. And just let me know how you're feeling. Like, I'm happy to help. I'm here to help you. I think a lot of times we get the idea that professors are here to, like, judge us and maybe not be the most helpful people in the world. And that's a shame. I like being helpful. That's why I make all these videos. And this first video is a little bit of background on this book On Dialogue, but we'll get to that in a second. I think that it's October. The semester is almost over. Think about it. Only have a few weeks left. Midterm time. I don't really give a midterm. I put a midterm on the syllabus, but I'm not really a big midterm fan. So yeah. But anyway, hope everything's going okay for you. This is going to be. I don't know how many lectures I'm going to do on Dialogue. I'm thinking 4. Should cover it, but it could be that I get long-winded. Like, this video is already, like, off the rails, and we just started. It's 5 minutes in, and I haven't talked about the book at all. But On Dialogue is a very important book to me. Maybe I should talk about On Dialogue a little bit before we get into it. Let's take a look at it. On Dialogue. Here it is. This is the cover. It's a little big. Cover's a little big. Let's zoom out here. On Dialogue by David Bohm. And we're going to be going through this book. The book is not long. You see, it's 120 pages. Very short book, but a powerful book. And I guess the first thing I would ask you when you're thinking about dialogue is, how would you define dialogue yourself? What do you think dialogue is? And what is dialogue to you? And you might say, well, dialogue is when people don't fight and they sit down and they try to work out their differences. Well, this is a nice kind of layperson idea about it, I think. But I think that practice is always a kind of a limited practice, because it assumes a particular amount of willingness to agree, and it doesn't assume any kind of secondary gain from being oppositional. So it's a lot of political power, and a lot of power brokering can come from the fact of saying, well, I just want dialogue. I want a dialogue with them, but they won't talk to me. Okay, wanting a dialogue isn't necessarily setting one up that's fair or engaging in one that meets the bottom requirements of that. So the definition of it has to be more complex. And that's what David Bohm is trying to do in this book, is make a more complex understanding, or we could say a definition of it. But it's much more important to think about it as a theory. And this term theory has so much misconstrued stuff about it. I thought I'd spend a few minutes at the beginning here talking a little bit about the origin of theory. But I do have to say that here it is, October 13th, and I'm starting this lecture series, and you look at the world, and you wonder if there's any hope for dialogue at all. Like, it hasn't even been a full 7 days since Hamas attacked Israel and attacked the Israeli settlements. And it's been even less than that since the Israeli government started to respond, calling up 350,000 troops, dropping over 6,000 shells, the media here in the United States is reporting, into Gaza, cutting off water, food, electricity, power, cutting off the internet tonight at midnight, local time there. We are hell and gone from dialogue. We have straight up violence. And it's not good. Not good for anybody involved at all, except for maybe the people at the top echelons of power on the two sort of state-constructed actors here, nation-state or nation-state pretending actors here. Maybe multiple nation-states can benefit from the death of all these civilians. But we're not completely lost, because when you listen to media analysis of this kind of violence, it always comes back to this idea of a message. The Hamas is sending a message. The Israelis are sending a message by putting these troops on the border. The aircraft carriers that President Biden sent to kind of cruise around the area sends a message to Lebanon, to Syria, not to get involved. So we're still in the realm of communication, even though it's with military munitions. We're still in the realm of rhetoric and still in the realm of communication, because an aircraft carrier, although a lethal weapon of death, cannot escape also being a symbol of something, however it's interpreted. I think in this case, the idea is stay out. This is not your conflict. Stay out. Don't get involved. It's still quite depressing, but that is a little bit of a grain of hope, is that you cannot escape discourse. And then the question is, well, then, if I can't escape discourse, what kind of discourse can I have? And, well, you can't have any discourse you'd like. You absolutely can't. You have to see what kind of discourse is possible. What kind of discourse do I have the agency to form? And that might not be the right way to think of it either. It might be that discourse forms us into speaking subjects. And that might be something worth thinking about. So there are many different theories of discourse out there. The one that I think is the one that I've gotten the most out of is Jacques Lacan's theory of discourse. And he says there are 4 major discourses that shape our identities as we move through the world. There's not one that's better than the other ones. That's kind of a hard thing to accept. It's the same thing with rhetoric. Like when you learn the rhetorical canon of style, most of us will learn the rhetorical canon of style in a public speaking class, like what you're in maybe, or maybe you're watching this and you're out of college or something, or maybe you're a professor, who knows who you are. I don't care who you are. Welcome. Welcome. I love having you here. It's great to have you. Thank you for watching this. That's for you. Yeah, baby. So, we first learned style, the canon of style in rhetoric, and we usually talk about Cicero with that. And we say Cicero said there were 3 styles, high, middle, low. Naturally, the student wants to make the high discourse the good discourse and the low discourse the bad discourse. But that's not what Cicero meant at all. Cicero meant that each type of style was appropriate to a certain situation. And he also further understood and teaches us through his writings that one could mistakenly use the inappropriate discourse and get great results if you used it in the wrong form. So imagine talking in a kind of a down-home country way in a formal courtroom setting. What would that do for the jury? What would that do if you're running for office and you talked in a folksy way like you were from the country? That might be the low style. But you're in a situation that might call for the high style. You're running for office, bro. You want to be elected. You might want to be in the high style. These things can create different kinds of meaning because it could indicate or communicate a kind of a sincerity or a kind of a connection with honesty or a direct connection with an unmediated reality. That would be extremely powerful and extremely supportive for somebody. Let's take a look at this. Lacan's 4 discourses. Now, I'm going to refer to this a little bit. This is the image of the 4 discourses here. I don't know why. Why is this not coming up on the thing? I don't want this one. I want this one. There it is. So let me make myself a little smaller. Okay, yeah, that's good. All right, so the 4 discourses. So each one of these indicates relationships that we can have in speaking that are imposed upon us by discourse. We don't pre-exist before speech, which is a difficult thing to accept, but this discourse theory would say that speech gives us our identity. So I'm able to speak because I can articulate myself as a speaking subject. So each one of these has a different role. The discourse of the master. This S1 here, I wonder if I can make this bigger. I can, look at that. The S1 here is the sign of the master. That's a ordering term, a term that orders all other terms. This term creates S2, which is knowledge. You can't have knowledge without this. So you could think about this as ontology, like what we talked about in class. The ontic ontology, maybe. You could think about it as terms that require no definition, but define what else can be said. You can also think about these as the terms of mastery. So when we think of lawyers and doctors, what are the terms of mastery that then create knowledge? Things like diagnosis, things like exam, things like appeal, things like officer of the court or courtroom or evidence, the mastery terms that then create knowledge of what evidence is. What is a diagnosis? What is medicine? What's hidden under this mastery term is that it's just like any of us. This is the symbol Lacan uses for a normal person, the split subject, the normal human being. This is hidden. The master presents itself as an unproblematic term, such as mathematics or chemistry, as in one of my in-person class. Oh, boy. Don't talk to the first-year chemistry majors about the chemistry department. You will learn a lot. There's a lot of tea. Does anybody know the chemical composition of tea? If you do, drop it down in the comments. Are you a chemist? Boy, howdy, man. My class a couple of days ago, they were like really critical, and not in a bad way, not like a savage drag, terrible, nothing like that. They had legitimate criticisms of what was going on in their chemistry classes. I was like, oof. Bro, I'm glad that's not me. Yikes. But who knows what they say in there. They might go to their chemistry class and be like, yo, we have this complete dill hole of a public speaking teacher. This guy, he doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So it might be chemistry, but then it's actually just taught by regular old human beings. This is the symbol for the normal human being. What the line symbolizes is that you have an unconscious part of your mind that you can't access. So you have desires and things you want that you don't tell yourself about. That's the unconscious mind. So like dreams. That's why dreams bother you, is what Lacan would say. Because dreams bother you because they expose something that you deeply know, but you haven't been able to articulate it into words, into your conscious mind. So in the Discourse of the Master produces knowledge, and that creates desire. This is the symbol for desire. This is called petit objet A in the theory, but we'll just call it desire. What is this? This is the thing you want. Desire for something. It doesn't matter what it is, because in this theory, desire operates with arbitrary direction. Whatever it is you want, that desire is going to function the same, and it provides the same kind of pleasure to you. Not in the getting of it, but in the quest to get it. The chase, right? That's what this theory is all about. So down here, this desire can never know that it came from an imperfect source. So this is the discourse of control. Top-down control, manager to worker, boss of the company, the startup, the president to the country, this kind of thing. That's that one. Discourse of the University is where you are. This is St. John's, perfectly St. John's, where knowledge is in the driver's seat. It's the creating force, which makes sense. Like we would say the university is based on knowledge. It's not based on ideology. There's so many things about university discourse that are like, the university has no political position. The university has no ideology. It has no angle. It's just run by pure knowledge. But knowledge is never pure, is it? What we find down here in the position of truth, which is, I don't know if I like the word truth, the position of the hidden. This is the hidden, the unexposed. Like a master is truly just somebody else, right, with a funny hat, or with the belief that they know, the belief of that they have power. Or they've mastered the language and you think that they're like in charge. Over here, knowledge is always ordered by something political. There's a reason why certain kinds of knowledge and certain kinds of majors exist and other ones don't. Look at the University of West Virginia, right? That's a big story in the news. What programs are they cutting and what are they keeping? They're saying, well, we're a university, we present knowledge, but it was political what they chose to keep and what they chose not to. They say it's in the service of knowledge and creating a good university, but what is obvious to everyone is that they picked the ones that make money. So the master term is capitalism or finances, money. And that's what's determining what gets to be counted as knowledge. Do you understand that? I'll say it again. The master term determines what knowledge is, but we can't access this. We don't know this. All we're presented with is the university as a neutral site of discovery of knowledge and truth. Even St. John says that, right? They say one of our values is truth. We're going to expose and discover the truth, and we're going to say it even if it hurts people. And that's a really noble kind of storybook idea. That's like a great movie plot. That's like Captain America kind of BS, right? We love those kind of movies. Well, I don't, but a lot of people do. In fact, billions and billions and billions of dollars have been spent just watching Iron Man run around and shoot people with lasers and be a good guy, be a hero. But there's some ideology there behind that knowledge. What is it? What is it? Storybook idea that knowledge, the knowledge of the truth just runs things. There's always an angle. So what does it do? Well, it posits itself. It creates or pushes out. It pushes towards desire. So this might be you as the student. The university wants you to desire the knowledge. So that's what it's creating, is desire in you. When you see a university ad, think about this. The university ad is like, we're going to teach you how to have a good life. Notice they're not going to say we're going to teach you how to think correctly. We're going to teach you the truth. None of that. We're going to teach you how to have a good life. So you're going to want to desire that. And then what is produced are normal people. Split subjects. That's what's produced, are people who are unsure. They're cautious. They're like, I'm going to need to look into that. They're not very politically frothing at the mouth. University graduates. They're good functionaries. They know how to go take a job in a cubicle and work and make good money and get a mortgage and a car and a family and all that. So that's kind of what the university wants, is a replication of society. And that's another discourse that we take on, the discourse of Lacan called this the discourse of science as well, but the discourse of the university. So you can think of it this way. Nobody's really in charge of the university, right? Nobody's really in charge. Like you go to an office. Have you had this annoying experience where you go to an office and they say, oh, yeah, I just work here, buddy. I'm just like you. I don't know who's in charge. And you go to this other office and you just kind of run around the campus and no one seems to be in charge. You ever had that experience? Frustrating, right? I think even if we went to the president of the university, he would be like, I just work here. I'm not the master. And that's kind of what the discourse of the university sounds like. It's all about knowledge. It's not about policy. We don't have an angle here. We're a university. Let's do Discourse of the Hysteric next, because this is the one that is called the teaching discourse. Bruce Fink calls it the teaching discourse. I'm going to have to shrink myself, I think. Whoa, look how I'm so tiny. Oh, my God. Oh, look at that. I'm like smaller than the Windows clock. That's funny. All right, so let's talk about the Discourse of the Hysteric. The subject presents itself. Now, you could think about this position of agent as the speaker as well in a discourse. You could do that. You could say, this is the speaker. And they are speaking and representing themselves in a way through speech, but will never really know what's underneath them, what their identity is that's motivating that. We'll never be able to access this. This part, the area of truth, is off limits. That's something buried inside. They're not presenting to us through their discourse. They're presenting discourse to us that is meant to change our mind and make us into something. For example, the master wants to produce us as a subject. I know, and now you know. I'm the master. I say what goes. Now, here's the knowledge you need to know. And then you're like, oh, now I have desire to do stuff because the master told me what to know, and now I have to go act on this knowledge. Likewise, the university. We are knowledge. You want knowledge. Oh, I do want knowledge. And now I'm going to go off and be like a human being and kind of replicate the status quo. Go and work in whatever industry I want to do. I'm going to be a typical person whose desires are not fully known to themselves. Split subject is often what that /S is called. Discourse of the analyst, or Discourse of the Hysteric. Let's do that one first, because the analyst gets weird. Discourse of the Hysteric is, it's kind of weird, but it makes sense once you kind of understand. I don't really know. The split subject is like, I'm not really sure. I'm uncertain. So the university actually produces uncertain people, which is actually kind of good for replicating. Like the university is kind of a conservative place. You come to get a degree in a job that exists, and you go and work in a job that exists so that you can buy a house with a mortgage that exists and a car with a car loan that exists. It's not the bastion of radicalism that people think it is. It's designed to replicate a particular kind of economic class. Right? That's what the theory indicates anyway. That's what the discourse of the university. It doesn't have to be a university. Anything could be structured this way. A startup could be structured like that. Anything. Discourse of the Hysteric is a little bit more radical form of teaching. So the speaker presents itself as, I'm not really sure. I don't know. Maybe. And can you tell me what to do? Can you tell me what's right? So it creates the audience or the other person that you're talking to. You present uncertainty, and you want them to master you. You want them to become the master. And that produces knowledge. So the person in this position would be like, oh, I'm going to tell you what you need to know. So somebody might be like, I don't really understand this Israel-Palestine thing. Should I support Israel? Should I support the Palestinians? And people will be like, oh, let me tell you the truth. Here's the knowledge. Dump, and they just knowledge dump on you. Truth is, you actually do kind of know what you want. I'm not sure what I want. I'm not sure what to believe. You actually do have a desire to believe, but that desire would be to create knowledge. So this is the model of teaching discourse. This is like the teacher's discourse. Because the teacher presents themselves fakely sometimes as being uncertain, right? You've had teachers like that. They're like, what could it be? What do you think it was that caused the Civil War? Oh, history class. What do you think would have happened? I don't really know what would have happened if we'd lost the American Revolution. And the students are placed in that position of mastery, and then they produce knowledge, and the teacher can evaluate that because the teacher's desire is for them to produce knowledge. Now, this is also conservative because this isn't new knowledge. You're asking them to take on the role of the master, an ordered position like the historian, the scientist, the teacher. You want them to take on that existing role and produce knowledge. And this is often what we do in class, is this. Like, you tell me, well, what was the author's thesis? I'm thinking you might be saying this or this. What do you think it is? And you're the masters of the reading because you did the reading, right? You did the reading, right? Okay. I don't want to have this conversation again. So knowledge is the result. Tell me what the author's saying. But I already know what the author's saying. I'm just hiding it as a teaching method, right? So the final one is the discourse of the analyst, which is the, Lacan calls it the discourse of radicalism. Like, this is the the discourse of the political radical. You present yourself as desirable. I'm a friendly guy. I want you to, be interested in me. I want you to talk to me. And that creates a lot of uncertainty in the other person. They're like, wait, what? This person is like, what are they about? They're kind of mysterious. I kind of like them to, they just kind of present themselves as like, let me ask you some questions. And you're like, oh, okay, maybe I can just ask them a bunch of questions that can tell me what to do because they're desirable. They're a person I want in my life. Now, secretly, they have the truth. They have knowledge. So this presentation of like desirability is based on knowing something. And so you want them to tell you what's right. Just like how over here, you're kind of hystericized. That's why it's called the discourse hysteric. You're like, I don't really know. Tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. That's the way hysterics sound generally, right? Is, oh gosh, what do I do? Do I break up with him? Do I stay with him? Do I stay with her? Do I break up with her? Do I quit my job? Do I take a new job? And hysterical discourse is very frustrating because people present lots of knowledge. Now I'm thinking about this. I think I do this to people a lot in my personal life. They present lots of knowledge and you're like, I don't know, because it'll never satisfy that because I already know what I want. I'm just presenting this in order to hear the knowledge of mastery. Likewise, it's over here, but it's reversed. It's like you present yourself as like knowing something. You have it, but you don't share it. You're just desirable. So they start asking you questions because you're supposed to know. In fact, this is called the subject that is supposed to know, is this side of this equation. In French, it's the sujet supposé savoir, the subject who is supposed to know something. So you're supposed to have knowledge. A lot of times teachers are like, you're like, my professor is supposed to know, but they don't tell us anything. They haven't told us anything that's going to be on the test. What's supposed to be on the test? And kind of hystericizes the person. And then what is produced is mastery. They're like, well, through all this asking of questions, I kind of figure out how to master my own questions. I feel like how to master my own life. And you notice knowledge is hidden and inaccessible here. That's because this is a new mastery. This is a new relationship to language. Mastering yourself, self-care, or what we might say, speaking your truth, kids might say today. Or they might say, don't let anybody silence your story. That would be the sign of mastery in this theory of discourse. So this is the most radical because it's creating new signs of mastery. And this would actually be truly revolutionary. But it wouldn't be education because education is not truly revolutionary. Education is you figure out how to manipulate the extant masters symbols and the extant knowledge that those signs make possible. And then you can have a job, then you can exist in the world, then you can exist in politics and all that kind of stuff. So that was way too long, but hopefully you found it a little interesting. So that's discourse. Discourse is the set of roles and the set of relationships one can have in a languaged environment. That's an important thing to keep in mind when we get into On Dialogue. This might come up. Because what David Bohm is trying to do is he's trying to shift us from something like this, which he would call regular politics, or something like this, which he might call, being aware or woke. This is kind of like wokeness. You see a lot of this on social media right now with the Israel-Hamas, Israel-Palestine issue. A lot of wokeness. But this is truly radical. And we can't know the knowledge that will come out of it. This is going to come up in the book because we're gonna get a lot of this new mastery, and then we're gonna say, David Bohm, what does that mean? What does that look like? He's not able to tell us because the discursive relationship that dialogue creates, that knowledge isn't knowable. It's not predictable. But what can be known is a new relationship of terms to people. How is that settling with everybody?
Oh.
You understanding it?
Oh.
Everybody get it? If you don't, you can watch the video again and learn some of the stuff. These are all new sounds for me. I like this one. That's a good one. That's the baby. Oh, yeah. Mortal Kombat's on here quite a bit. Well, that's the theory of discourse. Now, this video might just be kind of a standalone video now because I talked about Lacan most of the time. I didn't talk about David Bohm at all. But the connection is really there when you think about being mired in discourse. So as we kind of wrap up this half-hour lecture, here are the questions I want you to think about, and you can go back and watch part of the lecture and maybe think about it some more. The first one is, do you agree? Do you think that we're mired in discourse? Is that a substance that we exist in, that we have to accept as a given? Philosophers would say an a priori assumption. So is it an a priori assumption, something that we just accept, that we're mired in discourse? Or do you think that discourse comes later, that there are other relationships that are more fundamental than discourse? I would disagree with that. I think discourse, we're mired in that. Like everything is symbolic. As human beings, we see everything as completely pregnant with symbols. Just about everything. There's nothing that doesn't have some kind of symbolic content to it. I'm trying to think. Maybe you can think of a better one and put in the comments of something that would not be symbolic. But even launching rockets at your enemy is usually discussed as sending a message, or it's revenge or vengeance, or it's the new political normal, or like we just can't even stark violence is not outside of the rhetorical. It might be in opposition to a kind of a civic rhetoric, or what Kenneth Burke would say, ad bellum purificandum, a purified war, where the war only occurs in symbolic terms instead of occurring both in material and symbolic form, whereas people do die in this conflict. People are dying, and many more will die. It's not purely simple, but there is symbol. The symbols are there. So that's the first question. The second question is, when we think about the four discourses, here they are, the four discourses, how do we use this to understand human relationship to discourse? Well, that's a great question. It's not as if we could just command these things. They kind of suggest that we can. Like, if you take on the position of the hysteric, if you say, I'm unsure, I don't know what to believe, your friends will all try to give you the signs of mastery that will produce some knowledge. It might produce knowledge for you, for them, for both of you, but it also might just be the replication of knowledge that comes into being once people flash the sign of mastery. So they might say, well, Marxism explains Israel-Palestine. Well, here comes all the knowledge that the master sign of Marxism can produce. Here it all comes. Rhetoric can explain the Hamas conflict with Israel. Here comes all the knowledge that the rhetoric theorists can produce. Everybody with me? So you could take on these roles, I think, as the agent, and you could make some headway. But most of the time, we fit to the form. We are very fungible creatures. We're flesh and bone. We feel very, very firm. But our biological body is nothing compared to our symbolic and spiritual and articulated language form. It's all there together. So a lot of times we're bent into these positions by the way discourse finds us. We take on one of these roles, and we find ourselves maybe trapped, lacking, or feeling like it's insufficient because of the relationship. So do you think these are like things we could occupy and take on? I kind of think we can. That's the rhetorician in me. But a lot of people would say, no, these exist and we roll through them as society needs them. So we do need society. We need mastery. We need somebody in control. We need revolution sometimes. We need teaching. And we also need institutions like universities. And they need to be conservative and run by the discourse of the university. So that's another question to think about. And the final question is, where does dialogue fit into that? Dialogue as a discourse is something that we can... Is it something that we can intervene with and say we're going to have a dialogue now? Or does dialogue come about through other means? Or is it something that we have to really crowbar our way into it? Or does dialogue naturally occur? And what you're going to find, David Bohm's answer is that dialogue does not naturally occur. Dialogue is imposed from the outside, it has strict rules, and it's something you have to learn how to do. That might not be something you agree with. So start thinking about how you think dialogue exists in the world. So I think I'm going to call this video Introduction to David Bohm's On Dialogue. Foundational Principles Discourse, something like that. And it'll be video 1. It's mostly about Lacan's four discourses, apparently, because I've talked too long about it. But I think it's kind of an important thing to kind of wrap your head around. As always, Discord is Discord's out there. You can always jump on Discord and make a comment, ask a question, anything you want. I'm happy to answer them all the time. I have office hours all the time, bro. Bro. Is bro a gender neutral word? I don't think it is. I don't know. Not a lot of space in there for queer identities. What's the gender fluid term for bro? Is it bruh? Bruh? Probably not. Anyway, I'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Dr. Steve Yano. Like, comment, subscribe, and, send me an email. Let me know your questions. Leave a comment. Speak to you soon.